Hi guys, it's Adriana with Jack's Mom in Austin, and I'm here with Allie Goodwin from Lotus Chiropractic and Acupuncture. That's a mouthful right there. But yeah, so I'm here with her, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk to you guys a little bit about what she does, and then we'll go into a little more detail, and you guys can ask us questions along the way. I am watching, so if you guys have any problems hearing us, or if you can't see something, or if you want to know anything at all, let me know. But we will also have this, uploaded on YouTube later, and I will also have it available on Facebook. So there'll be lots of ways for you to get to this. But anyway, go ahead, Allie.
Oh, no, I love it. First of all, thank you for having me today. I enjoyed meeting you on Wednesday and was so excited to do this. So, I am a chiropractor and acupuncturist. I've been in practice for 10.5 years, I guess. I think that's right. Yeah, so quite a while, actually, which doesn't actually seem like it's been that long, but it has been. And so I treat everyone, all people with spines, but my kind of specialty is pregnant women and babies and children. That's kind of where my joy is. I really love my pregnant mamas and their little ones. Anyway, and so that's just, since that's my specialty, and a lot of people, there's still a lot of kind of myths and I guess misconceptions of what chiropractic is, and kind of what that entails and what that looks like for pregnant women, and then also for little bitty babies as well. And so I, of course, had to bring my spine. Because
I know. When she asked, I was like, yes, right. Bring the spine.
So this is what I talk to people about in my office. It's actually quite handy for me. And so chiropractic is based on the sciences of neurology and anatomy, where the brain and the spinal column are the nerve centers of the body, right? The brain controls every function of your body. And so as the spinal column kind of passes through the spine, it's in your spinal canal, right? Which is made up, surrounded by all of these lovely bones called your vertebrae, which make up your spine. And as the spinal cord passes through, it sends out little offshoots called spinal nerves, which are represented by these lovely yellow things right here. That go to every organ and tissue and cell in your body. And so starting with birth, actually, where there's a lot of torque put on the neck, either coming out vaginally or even during a surgical birth where they're kind of pulling baby out of mom, there's a lot of torque and kind of pressure put on the upper spine. And so starting at birth, a lot of times this is actually when the very first subluxation or misalignment actually of the spine occurs, and that just means that the bones get kind of twisted and stuck. So your spine is actually meant to move and twist, and you know, we spend our childhoods jumping and riding bicycles, and most of us are active as adults. And so over time, again, starting at birth, and then you know, most of y'all have seen a child learn how to walk where it's kind of step step and then fall real hard. And then they progress to scooters and bicycles and trampolines and then sports, and then they start driving as teenagers, and then there's usually a car wreck in there, and we are in Texas, so you could fall off a horse or an ATV. All of those kind of things tend to be cumulative on the spine, and what that means is that, you know, anytime you have abnormal pressure, or you kind of fall weird, or again in a car accident where there are accelerated g-force on the spine, again that just leads to these spinal segments becoming misaligned and not moving the way that they should be. So the long short of that is that when there's a spinal segment kind of misaligned, or what we call subluxated, it starts to put pressure on the spinal nerves, and it can be very slight pressure. And so what's ever at the end of that nerve, whatever organ, tissue, or cell is at the end of that spinal nerve coming off, there starts to be dysfunction in that. It's not functioning optimally. And so a lot of people ask that about, you know, why should I get my baby checked or my child checked because they're not in pain, is that you can have actually spinal dysfunction, you can have nerve dysfunction at the end of whatever is at that nerve a long time before there's actually pain present. So only about a very tiny portion of the whole spinal nerve actually transmits pain. So a lot of times pain is the last thing to show up, and usually one of the first things to go away. And so again, your body can be not functioning optimally without having kind of the symptom of pain. So usually pain is very, very acute. So it's my job. I was trained to actually kind of figure out where those misalignments are and kind of gently put them back into place. And so that is actually what chiropractic is about. It's really about the neurology and kind of the anatomy of the spine and how that kind of interferes with your body functioning optimally. Yeah. So
that's crazy. So little fact for you guys and for you guys. My mom was totally into she believed that anything could be fixed with going to the chiropractor. She did, which is really interesting considering, we're first generation, born and raised in Mexico, but she just felt that, that was the way to go. So for about 6 years of my life, anything that went wrong, we would go to the chiropractor for it. And it was crazy because she just felt an adjustment would fix it.
Yeah. And you can kind of see why that is kind of a misconception about chiropractic care as well. We as chiropractors do believe that if your spine is functioning optimally, if all of the pressures are off of those nerves, you could see how certain things would start to resolve. And so, a lot of people call us and they'll be like, oh, I'm not really feeling that great today. And we'll be like, come in, we don't care. This is the best time to get yourself adjusted because, again, the brain deals with immunity as well. And so after you get adjusted, your fighter T cells are actually activated for about 48 hours after an adjustment. So I can see why your mom kind of would feel that way.
Go do this.
And usually if you've ever been to a chiropractor or, you ever call us, we're like, no, we don't care about you being sick. We need you to come in. Just to, again, make sure that your immune system is functioning optimally. So it does have very interesting implications about kind of spinal nerves and just kind of the overall health of the body really does depend on the spine and your brain. So pretty cool.
And you do acupuncture too?
I do. So I have what's called a Diplomate of Acupuncture, which is a little bit different than like a licensed acupuncture, an LAC. My Diplomate, it was a year-long certification that I got. I actually randomly graduated with my Diplomate in acupuncture a week before I graduated with my doctorate of chiropractic. Wow. So I did kind of both concurrently the last year of school, which, again, I'm a huge nerd, and so I was like, woo, liked both of them. And so really the Diplomate just means that because I was already in chiropractic college and already had all of the anatomy and physiology classes, that I was able to kind of jump ahead in that portion of my studies. So, it was really great. And I didn't know anything about acupuncture, and a couple of my friends, I was like, what are y'all doing? And they were like, oh, we're going to this acupuncture seminar, and I went and got hooked because it is very similar to chiropractic in that, resolving kind of energy in the body can also be healing. And so I just am fascinated. I'm still fascinated with both of them as separate professions, but then both of them together, I've seen some really interesting things happen.
I bet. I know. I'm really curious about that now. So how does that work?
Right.
And Viviana says hi.
Oh, hi. I love you for watching.
I know. She's
You're
like,
so sweet.
Allie.
I know. Yay.
So let's talk about common myths. I know that's a really big one. I've heard, and I think this was maybe last year or the year before, which was crazy to me because, like I said, I went to the chiropractor growing up, which is that it can kill children or kills babies.
I'm sorry, I laugh when I'm nervous, but not when I'm nervous, but like,
because it's so silly. I feel like it's ridiculous. I could see. I feel like it's ridiculous to make such a statement that, getting your child adjusted could kill them. Yes. I don't know.
So, no, that is actually one of the most common myths. I mean, the other question, obviously, we just already touched on, which is, if my child's not in pain, why would I get them adjusted? So it's kind of shifting that mindset. But chiropractic for children has been studied for, years and years. There's actually a great kind of governing body, I guess, or an organization called the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association. So if y'all are interested in more of the research, like heavy research about kind of the efficacy and safety, y'all can always go to that website. It's ICPA4, the number 4 kids.org. Which you might post that afterwards.
I'll add that.
After that. So if you look actually at the research of it, I don't actually know where that myth came from. It's like a lot of myths. Sometimes I think a lot of people assume that a child's adjustment looks a lot like an adult adjustment, which again, a lot of people have seen that kind of that twisting motion of the neck, and that's actually not what a child adjustment or even a baby's adjustment looks like. It's actually very gentle pressure, usually just enough of a touch to like you were touching a tomato for ripeness is what we tell people, or enough pressure to kind of blanch the fingernail white. It's very little pressure. We don't actually twist their necks at all. We're able to just kind of come in and gently use just that slight amount of pressure to actually move their bones kind of back in place. And then as they grow and they get a little bit more muscle tone, then it's a little bit more pressure. But a lot of times it's not kind of what most people assume chiropractic care is or have seen chiropractic being. If you look at the research, most of the time, the side effects from a children's adjustment tend to be very slight. It tends to be kind of discomfort at that site, a little bit of fussiness. But those are really the only two main side effects that have shown up consistently in research about that. I have seen articles about kind of subdural hemorrhage, and but when I actually go and read that, it's usually not. It's just not kind of. I don't know what to say. Like, it's just not really accurate, or the study was off, or there was always something that was kind of like, I don't know. So I tend to use the ICPA. They tend to do a lot of research based. They have for years. So that's usually where I tend to pull off. Or the pediatric, the chiropractic pediatric textbook is where I get a lot of my research from too. So that's probably the biggest misconception, I think, or the myth about chiropractic care, because on the whole, it is very safe and effective healthcare for the family.
So why would we take our kiddos to go get?
Oh goodness!
Like, what are the benefits of it?
So, oh my goodness! Like, sorry, that's a very open-ended question. Because
let me add. So how we met? I was complaining on Instagram because. Hot mess, right? We've all established I'm a hot mess mom lately. Really bad. It's been horrible. It's been so bad. Anyway, I was complaining because Galen was having a really rough night. A lot of colic and stuff. And Allie's so sweet, and she PM'd me and said, hey, I can adjust him. So I thought that was really cool because I was like, oh my gosh, like we can, what? I need to know more. So this is where we're at. So,
and here we are.
Yeah, so here we are.
Together,
so tell us.
So usually with mothers with like say newborns, kind of like 0 to 3 months or 0 to 6 months, a lot of signs that your child might need to be adjusted are that they are favoring one side when they're breastfeeding. When you lay them kind of straight down, they're not able to turn their head completely from side to side. Usually we really want them to be able to kind of completely turn their head, their chin to their shoulder, and really lay on that ear. A lot of times, like I had a mom bring her 5-day-old to me yesterday. And she, when we were talking over the phone, she was saying, she just kind of like still scrunched up from birth. And most babies like to be that way. But even in like relaxed settings, she still was just kind of, she just felt like she was tight kind of around that. Breastfeeding can be painful. That's a sign that their mouths aren't opening, their jaws aren't able to open up wide. A lot of gas and colic, gassiness, colic, a lot of that can be resolved with chiropractic care. Again, just making sure that the pressures are off all of those nerves going to the stomach. And then, as they get older, again, we've seen children walk and fall. I have a 6-year-old son who loves to jump and climb off of everything. So he tends to be adjusted, again, because I'm his mother and can do that. But he tends to be adjusted quite often just because of the normal stresses that happen just being a kid who plays a lot. And who plays really, really hard. So for babies, it's a different kind of set of stuff than it is kind of as they get a little bit older.
So you would so one of the benefits we've discussed is colic, which is sorry that you lost me there where I was like, wait, what?
Oh yeah,
we need to bring in Galen because that's all that was going through my mind. I'm ticking off everything that we need to come in for now. It's crazy. It's okay. No, that's great. So those are the benefits definitely for children. And then you were saying, she just had the 5-day-old, or that you had the 5-day-old come in. And earlier you were mentioning, in birth, when they come out, the birth canal, there's some stuff that can go on there. So probably that. So what about moms? Like, I guess pregnancy and so I'm sure there's a lot that can go on there.
So, I mean, most of you probably watching are moms, right? That's why we follow Adriana, right? She's got some really great information for us as moms. And so for pregnancy, so with pregnancy in the body, you're kind of fighting kind of a bunch of different things. You're fighting kind of your change in shape, your center of gravity changes. You're also dealing with relaxin and hormone surges, both which can make the ligaments around your spine and in your hips and basically all over your body loose, right? And relaxin is great because it makes your pelvis actually spread apart as the baby is coming down and through the birth canal. But previously, when you're not in labor, it can also make things kind of loosey-goosey joints, kind of a little bit more mobile. And so also too, what happens in pregnancy, as your center of gravity changes, your pelvis actually starts to tip forward, which which makes this curve, the lumbar curve in your back actually even more pronounced. So it almost is like you're standing kind of subconsciously with your booty popped out, right?
Yes.
Right? Just because your center of gravity has changed. And so actually kind of going into those last few weeks where the baby starts to drop into the pelvis then starts to go from being really, really tipped forward to kind of back this way. And a lot of times moms will get achiness, pain. Baby can also be kind of pressing on things. So there's a lot more pain kind of associated with pregnancies, usually in subsequent children, which is why most people seek out I guess chiropractors during pregnancy. But for the whole, this is usually what I tell my pregnant moms, is that your pelvis is like a little empty bottom bowl, and if it's off one side or the other, it can put pressure on either one or both of the round ligaments, because the round ligaments actually attach to your pubic bone. Which can keep baby from either turning head down, and sometimes even keep them from having all of the room that they need to grow, because one side is tight, right? It's like a balloon on one side, and then that round ligament is tight, so it ends up being tight on one side. Also, too, if the sacrum is at back, that sacrum is that little triangle piece of bone, like your tailbone, in between your hips. If your sacrum is out one side or the other, it can also keep baby from dropping into the pelvis to actually trigger labor. Yeah. And then in labor, actually trying to push a baby out into a pelvis that's kind of like this, or the sacrum's out on one side, baby really has to work really hard, as do you, to get baby around things that shouldn't be in there. So our focus with pregnancy care is, especially closer to labor, is really making sure that that pelvis is as bowl-like as possible, and all of the tension are off all of those ligaments, just because it does. I mean, and there's a lot of research about that, about chiropractic care really making a difference in the length of labors and how short you push during labor. And again, a lot of that goes back to all of those nerves are functioning optimally, but it also has to do with the actual underlying structure of the pelvis going into birth and kind of during. So again, I see pregnant women from really, really early on. I'll see them towards the end of their pregnancies. It just tends to make a difference in the way that you carry your pregnancy, just because we're taking all of that stress off the spine and allowing it to adapt as you are growing an infant inside you.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm surprised I totally didn't think of this while I was pregnant, because everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, I had all these problems, and I totally should have come in. And it's funny, one of my friends actually said, I sent her a picture, like a side picture, and I was like, my back is killing me. It's actually Mary from Magnolia Bakery, really close. We were pregnant at the same time, and I think our babies are only like a month and a half apart.
Oh, that's fun, mommy.
Yeah, exactly. And she was so helpful, because she's like, you need to tuck in your bowl, and I'm like, what are you even talking about?
She was talking about, like,
and I had no clue. I just did not know, and she's like, yeah, you have to envision this, and she walked me through it, and there was a difference that I felt. And I mean, at that point, I probably should have thought, okay, I need to do adjustment. I need to do something about this, but I didn't.
That's okay.
But now we know. So those of you watching, my pregnant mommy friends,
if you're pregnant,
yes, this is awesome to know. And I think Viviana went to you guys, right, or to you? Was it after? She brought the babies.
Sorry, yes, I was very fortunate enough to see Viviana and also I know, right before, at kind of different times during their pregnancy, and then I saw the babies, I think, right after. So yes, I know. I was looking. She had asked me if I had that photo, and I only had them in the pregnancy pillows while I was adjusting them. I didn't actually have a picture, but yes, So
I might bug her later, and I had already told her this about. I was like, I'm going to bug you later, because I feel like we need to. This is a good option for moms to know about. You know, like I knew this in my past, but I had never thought of it as a pregnancy, and also not as an option for my child or my children. So that's awesome. Thank you.
That's good. Sorry. So one more thing too. Then after birth, because you were talking about like things that bring baby in, right? Is usually what I tell my moms is that all of the stuff that happens kind of in your low back towards the end of pregnancy ends up being transferred up here, especially those of us who breastfeed.
Yes.
Just because we spend so much time holding our child and admiring how beautiful they are as they're breastfeeding. So we spend a lot of time like this.
Yes.
And so you can really start kind of having upper back issues as well, kind of neck stuff, not to mention sleeping, falling asleep in a rocking chair, sleeping with your child, nursing. So we tend to, as moms, tend to be in all these really weird positions afterwards.
Totally agree.
Which again kind of falls into that self-care thing, but it also tends to transfer into different areas of the spine. What's really cool is that the relaxin that we talk about that actually helps your pelvis separate in labor and works on baby as well to make baby as squishy as it can to get out. Also is in your system for about 6 to 8 months afterwards, and so that's a really long time. There are drops in it usually after a month, but if you are breastfeeding, it tends to magnify the effects of relaxin even more. So those first several weeks after pregnancy, you can kind of work yourself into really interesting positions, your spine into interesting positions, just because the hormonal flux of that, plus combined with the relaxin that's still in your body. What I like to tell women is that that's actually sometimes the best time to work on your spine, especially if you've had back pain before or things that just haven't really resolved. Especially, I keep using the word pain, but just kind of any sort of whatever, because as relaxin leaves the body, we're able to kind of manipulate the spine a little bit better and more completely, and then once relaxin is out, things tend to tighten back up, and so we're able to make a better, more lasting correction kind of after pregnancy as well, which is really cool.
Good to know.
Yeah, and men don't get that. So I guess that may be silver lining in pregnancy. I don't know.
Right, I know.
One of them, other than having a child.
Right. Yeah, but I was wondering about that with the breastfeeding, because that's been, and I noticed that with Jack after I breastfed him for like 2.5 years. But like a certain hold or a certain position, you start getting like weird pain. Yes, and it's just like, oh my gosh, and turning the neck a certain way. I found too and it's funny because it's returning all over again with Galen.
With Galen, okay.
Yeah, so now
we should see.
I need to come by.
So we can talk about that.
Exactly. So let's see. So I also wanted to know about, and hopefully we have a few viewers. If you guys have any questions at any point, let us know. Ask us. We'll be willing to ask or to answer that. And let's see. Anaya. Hi, Naya. She actually asked a question.
Oh, cool.
I saw a chiropractor during pregnancy, and she helped me immensely with sciatic pain during pregnancy. Her magic hands saved me. Oh, I didn't even know sciatic pain could be. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, because it goes into kind of that sacrum, your tailbone, and the way that your pelvis is twisted. The big nerve bundle that actually comes out is the sciatic nerve. And so sometimes baby's a weird position in the womb, but it's usually kind of your sacrum out of place, your pelvis twisted a little bit. Can be. A lot of women do get sciatica. That's a very common thing. But good, I'm so glad to hear that. Yay.
I know. I needed to talk to you now. I need to talk to you too, because it's funny, all these mom friends are coming up now and being like, oh yeah, I did this, I went to see this chiropractor and this, and I'm like, how did I miss this while I was pregnant? It's crazy. But now I know, right?
Yes, right.
So yeah, let's talk about acupuncture for pregnancy. That's because I've heard that it can actually help maybe induce, or it might be.
It can, yes.
Just let's talk about it, 'cause I'm very curious.
So acupuncture is kind of all about energy in the body, right? And so we're really trying to balance out at any time for kind of any issue that people come in with. In the case of pain, that's usually energy that's kind of stuck in one place, and so our job is to try to use needles put in certain spots on the skin to kind of unblock that energy. So that being said, starting at the very beginning of pregnancy, a lot of times acupuncture can be really helpful to resolve morning sickness. It's very effective at any sort of feelings of being nauseated, even car sickness, that kind of stuff. Those are actually some of my favorite cases because it usually works really well pretty quickly, because I can't think of anything worse than being nauseated at any time. I just don't do like throw, that's like my idea of hell. But anyway, so that's really, really good. And then just kind of for general pregnancy health, overall health of kind of the fetus and then the pregnancy as well, there are points that we can do that kind of sustain a pregnancy, because a pregnancy is actually really hard on your physical kidneys, but then also kidney meridian is what governs kind of sexual health, conceptual health, So if we're able to bolster that meridian, make sure that the energy is moving through that meridian correctly, it tends to have overall health effects on the pregnancy as well. So I do see women kind of just off and on during their pregnancies for that kind of stuff. Most of the time I do get asked to do acupuncture to induce labor. So I usually go through this spiel about energy, and then I'm like, we usually make a cheesy joke that we're trying to move energy down and out, which is kind of what we're doing, but not really. Actually, acupuncture to induce is trying to boost those labor hormones high enough to get you over that last little hump to then get you into labor. So it tends to be effective with first-time moms, like usually around like 39, 40, closer to that 41 week, because most first-time babies come a little bit later, not all the time. I personally don't usually do it before 38 weeks unless there's a specific, like your midwife or your OB has specifically, there are issues there and they want to try to get you into labor kind of naturally. So that is something I tend to warn people about, but it tends to be overall pretty effective, I think, just kind of depending on where you are. I don't always, for a while I had 100% success rate, which was totally unsustainable. And I get that question a lot, like, what's your average? And there's not really, because every pregnancy is different. And a lot of times I'm seeing like a third-time mom that just needs a little bit of a nudge. Sometimes with those first-time moms, it takes multiple sessions. I
can see that.
So I'm not trying to be ambiguous or shady about not giving you that, but it really just it depends on everybody reacts differently with acupuncture.
And I mean that makes sense. If the hardcore drugs to get induced, 4 days, guys, 4 different methods of induction. If those took that long, I mean, it makes sense that something else like acupuncture as well could take a while.
Yeah. So I mean, it's always doing something. What I tell my moms is that, I really wish I had a crystal ball because it would make my job so easy. But even if it doesn't kick you over into full-blown, like, active labor, it is still doing things. Your hormones will peak within 48 hours of having a session. Which is always good because you want them to continue to rise. So if they're kind of peaky, but then there's always usually some sort of cervical dilation or thinning. There's always something happening when you do that sort of acupuncture. So it has been really cool. And usually I'll end up scheduling something and be like, don't take this the wrong way. I hope I don't see you tomorrow. I love you.
That's good,
But like usually if my moms don't show up if we're scheduled, I'm like, oh, she's in labor. Like, this is so cool. So Awesome. So it's fun work. It's kind of.
That's awesome. So that's really cool to know. Again, also missed opportunity there. I'm like, darn it. But that's cool. That's okay. Now we're sharing this information with other mamas. And so now we're going to, I guess, step into our mom hats and talk a little about something that was really important to us. I talked to Allie about this, and it was, like she said, we talked on Wednesday. Yeah. And it was a really great conversation talking about self-care and remembering that. And I think that's something that definitely starts, we should do it all the time. But I think once we get pregnant, we start to forget and we start to ignore that, and we start to focus on everything we need for baby. And then when that baby gets here, it's even worse because then it's there and you really don't matter. So
your chopped liver,
and it's nuts. So I really like that. The adjustments and stuff. I know that might seem like something silly because I think a lot of times, and I was talking to Naya and Alexis about this, on how when we think of self-care and we think about taking time for ourselves, a lot of times there's this misconception that, you need to take an hour for a spa or a manicure or whatever. Yeah. And, that's awesome, but I think just taking those
There's no way.
I know, there is no way. Like right now, I cannot imagine going and doing something like that. Like, I just can't. So just taking those few minutes, 10, 15 minutes. But if you do have the time to go and get something like an adjustment done, and you had said, bring the baby.
Right, we love babies.
Yes, I think that's such a great opportunity to really, practice self-care and that time to just, make peace with you and remember that you do matter as a mom and as a woman and as a parent.
Yes.
So...
Yes, exactly. So I do like, usually my moms will say, well, how, when can I come back in and see you after I have the baby? And I'm like, as soon as you are ready to. And part of that is, definitely making sure that the stressors of birth are kind of off the spine, really resolving that. But as you kind of grow as a parent, it's not just spinal stress, but it is also sleep deprivation. And, there's, as much as we love our children, it does become a lot about them, especially in those first, I don't know, my mother would say the first 18 years of their life, but especially the demands of a newborn, as opposed to somebody who's like my son, like 6, who's a little bit more self-sufficient. So even if it's just, a 15-minute visit or a 20-minute visit, and you're able to lie down and be touched. I know that sounds really strange, probably, but there is a lot to be said about just laying your hands on somebody. The kind of the power that that transfer of energy from my body. This is why massage is also so great for new moms. It is just a bit of self-care, that may only be 15 minutes. Long, so it's not a huge chunk of your day. It's not like Adriana said, like the hour at the spa. But then when you leave knowing that everything is functioning optimally again. And so that's kind of like an internal piece of self-care.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, so it does make it a little bit easier. And again, almost all chiropractors that I know that treat families or treat children, we usually have like a child's area in our office. I know a lot of moms kind of will shush their children. We're like, we don't care. This is what happiness sounds like to us, is the kids that are happy to be there. They see their parents. We try to get them involved in adjusting their moms. We have little tools and stuff. Yeah. So it's fun. So I don't think any of us really have an issue with you bringing your child. And most of us, like Adriana apologized because Galen threw up on me the other
long
day.
Stream of
like
spit
all
up.
the way down my back, and I was like, which was so cute. He's adorable. And I was like, no, I consider that a good day in my office, or a good day just a period if I have a child that has, spit up on me or whatever, because it means that I was able to hold them for you. Like even for you to just go to the bathroom by yourself, sometimes it's nice to go to a place where we are happy to see you and your child. Like we love that. We love that relationship. We love getting to see children kind of grow. So I think chiropractic is a really great tool. And then if you have longer amounts of time, acupuncture as well are great tools for self-care, especially in such a time-squunched time. And I always think of Viviana because you have 2 babies, and it's it's your stressors are a little bit more than probably most of us.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you do it? How?
I'm telling you, I am overly impressed, I think, with her too, but sometimes, even just leaving them with somebody else just to run with, and do the adjustment, and then just have that little bit of breather, and then you go get coffee and then go home. A lot of times just having that quiet, that time just to remember is really good too.
Yes, I totally agree. It's so important. It really is. It's so important. Like, it's crazy. And I preach that a lot, but at the same time, hard. Now, and right now I'm realizing like how important it really is. And I know there's a lot of you that follow me on Instagram, and I had to do a video yesterday because I managed to lock myself out of my house and my car at the same time. That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
I'm awesome to do both, guys. Talent. And it was horrible. And I thankfully I was wearing Galen, so he wasn't stuck in either or. Yeah. But it's just me and him outside, like, all right, what now? We get to... So I broke into my own home, which was exciting. That was very exciting for me. It was just a really rough day. But that definitely made me come to terms with, like, I need to take a moment here soon.
Right.
And, do something just to...
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I shouldn't be laughing.
No, I was laughing. I was like, at first I was so pissed, and then I was like, I'm just going to laugh about this because...
if you don't, you'll cry. You'll just burst into tears.
And that's because earlier in the day, this is the second time I've done that, where I'm texting someone asking if I left my phone at their house. Oh my gosh. This is the second time I've done that. So, obviously we need sleep in our house right now. Yes. And it'll come. I know that it'll come. It did with Jack, and it will with Galen. But self-care. Right. Definitely remember yourself and love yourself.
Yes.
So.
And remember that you are doing a good job.
Yes.
Even on the days that you don't feel like you are. That is my
I was really proud of myself yesterday.
Good, you should be.
If anything, I was like, wow, I broke into my house. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be stuck, and it was great.
I'm impressed with your skills.
I know. I was like, wow, I did it by myself. It was a weird day. It was a weird day. But anyway, that aside, is there anything else that you want to add to our conversation other than go get adjusted.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yes.
Go get adjusted.
Yeah, that I do think that a lot of people are kind of seeking out kind of natural alternatives to kind of healthcare, and we've been around for a really long time, and I think that paradigm is kind of shifting over there, and so it just the children that I see, even my own son, having gotten adjusted from his birth, having gotten adjusted during my pregnancy, it can make a big difference in their immune levels and just kind of their overall kind of happiness. And like when you're a baby and they can't tell you what's wrong, sometimes it just they tend to be happy with very well adjusted children, and again, it's just because their spine is working the way that it should, it's their brain. So I would say get adjusted, and just again, the self-care piece is a huge thing. So even if it's not getting an adjustment, even if it's just like reading in the bathtub at night before you go to bed. But that too, just remembering that as a mom, we have one of the hardest jobs in the world, and some days it is enough that our children get through the day not having died. So
yes, I say that all the time. I'm like, yes, two are alive
like
today.
we're in bed. Yes, we made it through another day. So y'all are doing great jobs raising your children, and you need to give yourself a lot. I think we need to give ourselves a lot more grace than what we do.
I totally agree.
So
all right. So we will have this uploaded onto Facebook indefinitely, and I will also have this on YouTube and in a blog post with all the fun information. I know, I'll have it all. I'll have it everywhere. And I'll have that website up for you guys that you mentioned, the ICPA for kids, right? Yep. So I'll have that linked up, and how you can reach Allie and hopefully go and get adjusted or do whatever you need to for you and your family.
Yes.
Other than that, I think we're good. And I totally forgot that I have to come up and around to stop this live video. Yes,
thank you for joining us. Thank you.
You guys have a great weekend.